Hello, everybody, and thanks for taking the time to join us today to learn more about the Nolan solutions for Business Central. My name is Derek Beaupre, and I'm the Channel Development Manager for Nolan, and I will be your host today. For anyone not familiar with Nolan, I wanted to take a quick minute to share a little bit of our history. We've been a long-standing ISV in the Microsoft world since 1988, and we specialize in building add-on solutions for Dynamics. We are a global company with offices in the UK and across North America. We currently have two offerings for Dynamics Business Central: the Nolan Bank Feeds module, which is to help automate the upload of the bank statement for reconciliation purposes, as well as our automated bank reconciliation solution to streamline and automate the bank reconciliation process as much as possible. I'm going to start by reviewing our bank feed solution, and I do want to point out early that our bank feed will work with both the Business Central Bank Rec as well as with the Nolan Automated Bank Rec module. Our bank feed story really begins a number of years back when we were looking at using other products to help with the integration, and most of what we saw was using a screen scraping approach, and we really found that it just had a couple of serious issues that prevented us from moving forward with it. One being the actual connectivity. With those connections, there are credentials that the bank changes in the background that result in the connection breaking. So it's not a consistent connection. And the other issue we had was really just around the data quality. So we weren't able to control the information that was being brought in. So we weren't always able to build the strongest reconciliation rules. This is what led us to develop our Nolan Cloud Services platform. Our Nolan Bank Feeds will allow you to connect via a number of different options. This includes the US and UK open banking platform, as well as SFTP or an API connection. With these connections, they're very stable and not affected by those bank credentials changing, and it is supported by the Nolan team after it's been set up. This allows us to have full control of the information that's being brought in from the bank statement. Now, the bank feeds will run on a scheduled basis, typically first thing in the morning, to retrieve a previous day BAI or CSV bank statement. Now, when our bank feed solution runs, it also allows for the automation of all the other processes I'm going to show you. So in addition to importing the bank data, it will extract the bank ledger transactions. It will run all of our auto matching rules, as well as all of our auto posting rules, and only leave you with the exceptions that need to be worked on. Now, I think it's also important to point out that with our bank feeds, we can connect with some payment gateway and corporate credit cards in addition to just banks. So an example that I don't have listed here for payment gateways would be, for example, Stripe or PayPal. Now, from a bank perspective, with most of the major banks, we have pre-existing connections. So as you can see here, Wells Fargo, Citibank, Bank of America, as well as some of the major credit card providers, so Chase, Capital One, or Brex. Now, I'd like to just take a couple of minutes to review the Nolan Bank Feed solution in a bit more detail. So when you're signing up for any of the Nolan Business Central solutions, our clients will need to create a Nolan Cloud Services account, which is what we're looking at now, is the Nolan Cloud Services login screen. And this is where the setup is done for both the automated bank reconciliation module as well as our bank feeds. Now, clients don't have to use your Nolan Cloud Services account outside of the setup, as we mirror this information back into Business Central via an API connection. So now let's dig in a little bit further and take a look at the bank feeds module. So once the connection to a bank or a credit card or a merchant gateway has been created by Nolan, it's a very simple wizard-driven process to add or remove additional bank accounts, as you can see on the screen here. Now, if we drill in a little bit further, we can see that within Nolan Cloud Services for the bank feeds, we can create multiple bank connections. Now, in this example, you can see that in addition to showing you the banks that we've created connections for, it will also show you the connection type. And as mentioned, we do have a number of different connection options, including SFTP, API, or the open banking platform. We'll show you what time the refresh is set for, when the last refresh was completed, as well as if there's any action required. Now, if we drill in a little bit further to a specific bank here, so I'm going to pick Fifth Third, we can see that within each bank account, we can have as many bank accounts connected to the bank feed module as you would like. There is no limit on how many we can connect. Now, if we tick on one of these specific accounts, you can see the actual information that our bank feed will be bringing over for reconciliation purposes. This includes the date, the transaction type, a transaction type description, the check or document number, the memo field, and the amount. Now, in addition to these fields, we can map out other fields on the bank statement if they're required to replace these fields if it's going to lead to stronger reconciliation rules. For clients using our bank feed module with the BC Bank Rec, it's very similar in terms of that it is a wizard-driven process to add or remove accounts once the connection has been created. And once we have created that connection, what you'll see inside of Business Central is that every morning we will go out, grab the statement, and then populate the left-hand side of the screen here with all those items from the bank statement. I'm now going to switch gears and introduce you to the automated bank reconciliation solution for Business Central. The first thing I want to review is just at a very high level, the features and benefits of using the Nolan Automated Bank Reconciliation solution. In addition to the bank feeds that I've discussed with the automated bank data upload, and then being able to further automate those other processes, including extracting the bank ledger and running all the rules, our solution features very strong matching rules. And as we move forward here, I'm going to actually move into Business Central to introduce you to our window. I'm going to show you the actual rule setup as well as the template setup. And then we're going to walk you through some use case scenario examples to just highlight all the functionality that we're going to review with you here. In addition to automating the bank upload, we also have very intelligent matching rules that allow you to get very, very granular with the rules you're creating. Our goal is always to have you in that 90 to 95% auto matched, and then just leave you a small number of what we call exceptions that are going to need a human brain to take a look at them and come up with, what needs to be matched. We also, within our rules engine, are able to create very strong transaction groupings. So we're able to group many to one from bank ledger to bank statement. We're able to group many to many, and we're able to group one to many. And I'm going to show you examples of these as we move forward. We also have the concept of tolerance on our rules. So by default, we look for amount, but sometimes we know there are situations that arise where the amounts aren't going to match exactly, but the transactions still need to be matched together. With ABR, you can do this by setting either a tolerance amount or a percentage on any of your rules that will then allow ABR to match them, even if the amounts aren't the same. And beyond that, we can actually auto post that difference as a bank ledger transaction for you without any user intervention. Which leads me to my next point. We do also have the ability to auto post bank transactions as we're importing the bank statement. So everybody's favorite bank fees or interest income or ZBA or sweep accounts, we can help automate the posting of those as they're brought in on the bank statement. So now I'm going to switch up here and jump live into my Business Central environment and walk you through our tool. So now we are looking at the Nolan Bank Rec window inside of Business Central. And the first thing you're going to notice is up top here, we give you information about the bank account that you're working on. And we give you the balances from both the bank ledger as well as the bank statement. So you're going to see the previous closing balance, the outstanding, and the net, as well as the difference between the two that we need to get down to zero to be able to reconcile. Now, as mentioned, when running the full automation using our bank feed tool as well as our bank rec, when you first step in to reconcile an account, everything that can be automated will already have run. Now, you're going to be able to tell this right away because within our window, we capture this piece of information called a match ID. Every time that we match a transaction, we assign it a unique sequential match ID so that you always have a record tying them back for audit trail purposes. Now, it may seem simple, but within our window, as mentioned, we do give you lots of features to help make it easier to deal with the exceptions. One of those things, as simple as it seems, is just being able to sort the columns, ascending or descending. And you can do the same thing on both sides. So again, just when you're working through exceptions, it makes it a lot easier to isolate what you're looking at. Now, within the window itself, you do have the ability to, as it currently sits, we have the bank statement transactions have been imported onto the left-hand side, and the bank ledger has been brought onto the right. We do give you the ability to switch the grid views. If you want the bank ledger on the left and the statement on the right, we can do that. We also give you the ability to print a closing balance preview, and then we can export that to Excel. Now, when you're working through a reconciliation, we also give you the ability to change the view. So right now, we're currently seeing all transactions, but within our window, we have the ability here to show just the unmatched. Now, if we switch to strictly an unmatched view, it's very helpful because it removes everything that's been matched and lets us just take a look at these exception transactions. So looking at this now, and based on the fact that my difference is 0 and I'm ready to reconcile, these transactions actually just represent outstanding items. So we have one here on the bank side, and we have multiple on the bank ledger side. Up here, we can see that these outstanding transactions have been accounted for, and that's the reason that our difference was showing as 0. Now, it's very nice because when we switch to an unmatched view, it really acts as a catch-all for any of those exceptions that weren't able to be automated. And we do give you some features to help within this window. So for example, I can select a transaction here and then hit the Create Transaction button. This will launch the Bank Ledger Transaction window, and it allows us to directly from our window, without having to leave and go back into Business Central, to post a Bank Ledger transaction. So again, we can add information like the document number and a description. We can pick the nominal account from anywhere of our chart of accounts, and then we simply hit Create. When we hit Create, it will automatically post and then extract into our window, select, and match the transactions for you. But in my example here, we don't actually need to create this one, so I'm going to close this down. I'm also going to switch the view back here to show all transactions and just highlight that in addition to giving you this match ID for audit trail purposes, you can also drill back and see the match info that was used to create this matching. So again, it's showing the rule name, and if for audit trail purposes it's ever required, it's very easy to access. Now I'm going to open up the Nolan Cloud Services window and show you how we generate match rules, just to get you familiar with the process, the options that are available, and then later when we move into our use case scenarios, you'll see examples of them in action. So when we're looking to create a rule, the first thing we're going to do is give it details about the rule name. So we want to name it something that makes sense, that describes the rule, and we will show you examples of this throughout the use case scenarios. Below that is where we start to create the logic for matching. So this is where we set groupings. So if we want to group transactions together on either the bank statement side, the bank ledger side, or both, we create them here. So if I want to create a statement grouping, I can select the little plus sign, and it's going to open the group by window. Now I can choose which field do I want to do my grouping by. So in this example, I'm just going to pick on the memo field because that's a common one we see. So we're going to look to group by the memo field. Now, sometimes the whole field works. Other times we need to get a little bit more granular and specific and call out a section within that field, which is why we've added this value modifier. So if we collect the little function here, we can choose to look for a substring. Now, what we do is tell it the start position. So within the memo field, I want you to start at position 4, and I want you to look for 5 characters. We save this, then we've added this value modifier. So now it's not looking at the whole memo field, but rather calling out a specific substring within it to drive this grouping. We can do the same thing on the bank ledger side. So again, it gives us a large number of fields that we can choose from, and we do have that ability, once again, to add a value modifier to this grouping. Once we've addressed the groupings, it's time to start taking a look at the match clauses. So this is really the match rules, what's going to drive a lot of the auto matching. So to get started, we add a clause. And I will say that within each rule, you can add as many match clauses as you need to really make sure that we're grabbing the right transactions and matching them to the proper ones as well. So if we click Add Clause here, it's going to open the Match Clause window for us, which is where we are going to supply the logic for ABR to do its matching. So you can see here, we're choosing the data source. So we can choose from the statement, the bank ledger, or a constant value. I'm going to leave it as statement for now. We can choose the value that we want to compare. So I can, on one side, choose the customer reference. We, again, have the ability to add modifiers. So we can call out a substring within these fields. And then we give you a number of search operators. So we can say we want it to equal, we want it to start with, end with, contains, or this last option, in list. When we're creating this in list, we actually provide the values that we want it to compare in a list, and then ABR can leverage that to make its matching. We are going to show you an example of this in the use case scenarios as well. So for now, I'm just going to leave this as equals. Then we come and we pick the data source for the other side. So again, it can be the bank ledger, the statement, or a constant value. And when we're picking fields, we don't need to match the fields exactly. So maybe the information I need is in the customer reference on the one side, but it's on the source document on the other. So I can create rules that match across fields as well as being within the same field. So this is where we are going to supply that matching information. So I'm going to close this for now. And again, when we reach our use case scenarios, I'm going to show you a lot of examples taking advantage of these match clauses. Below that, we're going to assign actions. So what do we want ABR to do once the rules have run? You can see here we have options for on no match. So on no match, the option can be to do nothing, or we can ask it to create a bank ledger transaction. Now, why would we want it to do this? Well, if we're creating a rule to auto post a transaction, so for example, a bank fee, we know there's not going to be a match because not both sides of the transaction aren't there. So when it doesn't find a match, we want it to create a bank ledger transaction using a transaction template that we're going to define ahead of time. So in my example here, I could choose the bank charges. Below that, we have the option for what to do if it's just a single match. So we have the option to match or do nothing. I mean, on that example, you're usually going to want to have it match. If we find multiple matches, do we want it to do nothing or do we want it to take the first option? On a tolerance match, so if we've created a rule that has a tolerance in here and we find a tolerance match, we can have the option to do nothing, or we can once again create a bank ledger transaction using a transaction template to post that difference between the transactions. Now, I've shown you all of the options here. For each rule, typically, you're only going to set one or two, depending on the parameters. Now that we've gone through that, I want to introduce you to the transaction template creation screen. So this is creating these templates that I'm showing you here that are going to drive our auto posting. So within the transaction template screen, we have the details. Again, assigning it to the company, naming the template, and then below is we're going to actually map out the fields of our posting. So we see here the reference field that we post is going to be pulled from the bank statement memo field. The transaction date that we post is going to be pulled from the bank statement transaction date field. And again, we have control here to choose different fields to drive this posting. Below that is where we're going to assign the nominal account that we posted to. and we have full access to our chart of accounts, so we can post it anywhere. And we can also leverage allocation accounts or dimension templates when we're making these postings. So with that said, I'm going to switch up now, move back into PowerPoint, and walk you through some sample use case scenarios leveraging our automated bank reconciliation solution. So now, to walk you through a couple of different scenarios, what we've done is created this format that's showing you the scenario we're looking to match. So in this case, auto matching AP vendor checks. We're going to highlight the rule that we've created. So again, this time it's called the 475 checks exact match rule, and then a brief description of what the rule is doing. So in this case, we're looking for just a single one-to-one match based on a transaction type 475 and a number of criteria, including amount and document or check number. The bottom portion of the screen here is actually just a snip of our bank reconciliation window. So this is what the matching looks like as ABR works through these rules. So you can see with this rule, we've created a number of matches and they're all one-to-one. You can see that these match IDs have been assigned. So we know that the matching has been done. And if we look, we see that it's a 475 transaction type and the amount and check number match with what we see on the bank ledger side. So ABR knew that these transactions should be matched together, and away we go. So now, taking a look at the rule that we've created to drive this matching, we see here that in our match rule screen, we created the 475 checks exact match rule. Now, we didn't need any groupings for this rule, so we didn't create any. What we needed were just some simple match clauses. So we said we want the bank statement amount to equal the bank ledger amount. We want the bank statement check number to equal the bank ledger document number, and we want the statement transaction type to equal the constant value of 475, which is our BAI transaction type code that we're leveraging. Now, if you don't use a BAI file, we can use the transaction type description as well. Then, once these criteria have been met, on no match, we want it to do nothing. On single match, we want it to match. And multiple match or tolerance match, we want to do nothing. So this is the rule we've created for the single check matching. The next scenario we're taking a look at is similar in that we want to auto match AP vendor checks, but this time we want to do it within a set tolerance amount. So we created the rule 475 check tolerance. Again, with our automated bank reconciliation solution, we're able to create multiple rules for the same transaction type, which helps us create a hierarchical structure that really gets very granular and again leads us to that 90 to 95% auto match. Now, with this rule, again, it's another single one-to-one match based on a transaction type of 475 and those same criteria of amount and document or check number. But this time, we're including an auto post of any amount difference up to $10. So looking at what this matching looks like inside of ABR, we can see that the amounts and the document numbers are what we are looking at. And we see that while the document numbers were the same, the amounts were slightly different. Now, because we had a tolerance on this rule, as well as an auto posting template, ABR matched these two transactions together, even though the amounts were different, and it then automatically posted a bank ledger transaction for the 33-cent difference. It then selected all of them together and matched them for you automatically. Now, when we do create an auto posting, I will show you here that the document number does always include this ABR prefix, so you know if this was something that was automatically posted by Nolan. What does this rule look like? Well, very similar to our previous one, in that we do not have any groupings, and our match clauses are that the statement amount will equal with tolerance the bank ledger amount. We then set the tolerance at plus or minus $10. The statement transaction type, we want to equal a constant value of 475, whereas the bank ledger source document, we want to start with the constant value of payment. The statement check number will also equal the bank ledger document number. On no match, we want nothing. If it does just match one-to-one with no tolerance, we want it to match. If we do find a tolerance match, we want it to create that bank ledger transaction for us using our 475 tolerance template that we had created. Now, the next scenario we have is one where we want to auto match a single cash deposit, but we want it to be within a 6-day window. So we've created the rule 165 deposits exact match. Again, this is another one-to-one match, but this one is based on transaction type 165 and multiple criteria, which are amount and date within a 6-day window. So looking at the matching that got done automatically by ABR, we can see that the transactions match in terms of amount, but the dates are different. So again, sometimes transactions will post over a weekend or there will be timing differences. So we want to allow you the ability to match them, even if the dates aren't exact, but we don't want the dates to get too far out. So we set a 6-day limit, and that's what ABR matched for us. Now, if we take a look at this rule, we'll see again, we named it the 165 deposits exact match. We did not need groupings on this rule either, but the match clauses are that the statement amount will equal the bank ledger amount, the statement transaction type is going to equal the constant value of 165, and our transaction date is going to be equal with tolerance to the bank ledger transaction date, plus or minus 6 days. On no match, do nothing. On a single match, match, as well as do nothing on multiple matches or tolerance. Now, this is an example that is first going to show you how we can leverage our groupings. So in this case, we're looking to auto match bank ledger receipts to a consolidated bank deposit. Now, the most common example we see of this is probably ACHs, where you have multiple posted to the bank ledger, and then you get that single deposit, which is why we created the 165 deposit group rule. This is going to be a one-to-many transaction match based on transaction type 165 and a number of criteria. One of those being a bank ledger grouping by date and then matching by amount. So when we look at what ABR automated for us, we can see here that it's taken these 4 bank ledger transactions, it has grouped them together by date, and then matched them against this single line item from the bank statement side. It's matched them, it's assigned that unique sequential match ID, so you can see all pieces of the transaction have the same match ID. So again, for audit trail purposes, you always have that tying it together. And it has matched all these for us. Now, I'm showing you one particular match. If you had multiple groupings that met this criteria, it would do all of those groupings for you automatically at the same time as well. So let's take a look at how we set up this relatively simple grouping rule. So again, we've given it our name, the 165 deposit group rule. And this time, we're looking to group on the bank ledger side based on transaction date. So after we found groupings based on date, we're going to look at the match clauses, which are saying that we want the bank statement transaction type to equal a constant value of 165, so we know it's a deposit, and we want the bank statement amount to equal the bank ledger amount. On no match, do nothing. On a single match, match. On multiple intolerance matches, do nothing. Now we're taking a look at another grouping scenario, but this time we want to auto match bank ledger receipts to a consolidated bank deposit, but with a tolerance amount included. So again, we've created the 165 group tolerance rule. It's a one-to-many transaction match, looking for transaction type 165, and again, multiple criteria. We're looking to group by the bank ledger date, and then we want to match based on amount with a $50 tolerance level included. We have a transaction template built to auto post that bank ledger transaction difference for us as well. So looking at what the match looks like, again, we've taken these multiple items from the bank ledger side and grouped them together based on date, and then we look to match them against a single deposit on the bank statement side. And this time we find that there was a 65-cent difference between the totals. So because we had allowed for that and created a posting template, when it saw this, it matched them all together and then automatically posted this 65-cent difference as a bank ledger transaction, and it's been assigned that ABR tag in the document number. And once again, same as with the other grouping rule, it will match more than one of these. We're just showing you one example for demo purposes here. So what does this look like when it comes to rule creation? Well, again, it's the 165 group tolerance rule. The grouping setting is the same in that we're looking to group on the bank ledger side by transaction date. And then we want the statement amount to equal with tolerance the bank ledger amount of within $50. And we want the bank statement transaction type to equal that constant value of 165. Again, on a single match, we're actually asking it to match. And on a tolerance match, we're asking it to create a bank ledger transaction using the 165 deposit template. Now is when we're starting to get into showing you a couple of more complex examples, leveraging a lot more of the functionality built into our tool. So in this particular scenario, what we're looking to do is group and match Visa and MasterCard deposits by store location by day. So we created the rule 165 Visa MasterCard group. Now this is an example of a many-to-many transaction match based on the transaction type 165 and a number of criteria. We're looking to group by both statement and bank ledger date, as well as the first two characters in the memo field, because that's a store identifier. The match itself is going to be based on amount, date, memo, and document number. So looking down below at the end result in ABR, we can see that we've taken these 4 transactions and we have matched them against a single deposit. Now, a couple of things I want to point out before I show you the logic we used to create this rule are in this document number field. You can see this AB is actually a location identifier in the document number. The other locations were BC and DE. So what we're looking to do is, because the Visa and MasterCards are done by location by day, we need to make sure that the location is the same and that it's either a Visa or a MasterCard. And you can see these Visa and MasterCard listings are going to come into play in our rule creation as well. But the end result is that we've taken these 4, matched them against this one. Now, we would have done this for the other locations as well. So in addition to matching the AB data, it will also automatically match the BC location and the DE location. So let's take a look at this rule and see how we were able to accomplish this. So we're looking at our 165 Visa MasterCard grouping rule, and we can see that we have grouping set up on both sides based on multiple criteria. So we're looking to group on the bank statement side by transaction date, as well as by the memo field based on a substring starting at position 1 and going for 2 characters. This was that AB store location. So that's where that was located, and that's what we are using to drive the grouping by the memo field. On the bank ledger side, we're looking for the same thing. We want to group by transaction date, as well as by document number. And within the document number field, we want that same thing. We want to look at the starting at the first position and going for 2 characters to capture that store ID to drive our grouping. So the match clauses that we've then created are to have the statement amount equal the bank ledger amount. We want the statement transaction date to equal the bank ledger transaction date. Again, we're looking to group deposits by location, by date. So we want those equal. Then we want the bank statement memo to contain the constant value deposit. We want the bank ledger document number at substring position 4, starting at position 4 and going for 10 characters to be in list. So this is what I was talking about with our search operators before. in list allows us to look at the information that is being provided to us on the statement and use that information to create our matching rules. So we know that on our bank statement, our Visa or our MasterCard is always going to be provided to us as either MC, Visa, or MasterCard. So we created those as a list, and now we're getting ABR to make sure that at substring position 4, going for 10 characters, that it is one of these values, either MC, Visa, or MasterCard. Then the last bit is that we want the statement transaction type to equal a constant value of 165 on no match, do nothing, on a single match, which is what we saw. Now, the last example that I want to walk you through here is similar, except that with this client, we saw that the Amex deposits were different than their Visa or MasterCards because the Amex was done for all store locations by day, not each store location by day. So for this, we created the 165 Amex group rule. It's also a many transaction match based on transaction type 165 and a number of criteria. We're looking to group again by statement and bank ledger date, as well as that Amex reference in the memo and document number field. And then the match will be based around amount, date, memo, and document number. So in this example, we can see that we've actually grouped these 3 items together on the bank ledger side, and we have grouped these 3 bank statement transactions together and then matched them all against one another. They've all been assigned this unique sequential match ID. So again, you always have that audit trail. And now you can see that the A, B, B, C, and D, E locations have all been grouped together because they're all Amex. So now to take a look at the rule we use to drive this, once again, we'll see the 165 Amex group rule. The statement transaction we want to group based on date as well as the memo field. Again, looking at substring, starting at position 4 and going for 4 characters. So that was that Amex reference in the memo field. And the bank ledger side, we're looking to group by transaction date as well as document number. Again, based at that substring, starting at 4 and going for 4 characters. The match clauses then are that we want the statement amount to equal the bank ledger amount. We want the statement transaction type to equal a constant value of 165. And we want the statement memo to contain the constant value Amex. We want the bank ledger document number at substring, starting at 4, going for 4 characters, to equal the constant value of Amex. Then from there, on no match, do nothing, on a single match, which is what we saw in our example. So with that is how we have been taking our clients from auto-reconciling 50% of their data to auto-reconciling 90 to 95% of their data using Nolan. Just want to thank everybody so much for taking the time to join me here today, and we're always happy to answer any questions that you may have, provide you with quotes, or set up a time for a more personalized one-on-one demo. Please feel to reach out to us. Once again, just a big thank you to everyone for taking the time today. Have a great day.